When an archaeology student unearths a mysterious skull, sudden deaths and disappearances ensue in their little town. Archaeology student Angus Flint unearths an unusual skull near the Trent sisters' guest house in Derbyshire, England. Excited by his discovery, the sisters, Mary and Eve, run to him to see what the fuss is about. Angus explains to Mary that the skull predates Roman times in 1086, based on the coins he found close to it. The coins bear the stamp of Marcus Carusius, the man who governed the province of Mercia in 286 AD, which happened to be the same location they're standing in. Realizing that the skull can't be a dinosaur, Angus remains clueless about what it can be. He plans on excavating further, but Mary tells him to put it on hold because they're going to a party. That night, Angus finds himself at a fun-filled mansion with the locals, along with Eve's fling, who also happens to be the current lord of the manor, James Dampton. Together, they dance to the song that speaks of the infamous Dampton worm, the bloodthirsty beast that is said to wreak havoc on the town. However, James's ancestor, John Dampton, slayed the worm and saved the townsfolk. After the dance, James welcomes Angus and says he knows he's digging in his farmyard. Angus apologizes, but James replies that he doesn't mind. Angus then shares that it's the site of an old convent, and he might have unearthed the legendary worm's skull. Intrigued, James explains that he shouldn't take the word worm too literally, as its original meaning is actually dragon or snake. Just then, James notices that Angus has taken a liking to their local delicacy, which he later reveals is pickled earthworms. Not long after, Angus leaves the party early with Mary while Eve continues dancing with James. The two decide to take a shortcut that the locals avoid, and Mary reckons that her parents' disappearance might have caused this. It has been a year since, and investigations are still ongoing. As Mary talks more about it, James asks if no one else is there to ease the burden, which is a discreet way of asking if she's single. Mary catches the hint, then replies that she doesn't have a boyfriend. With this, Angus kisses her, but they get disturbed when a car suddenly passes by. Mary thinks it's odd since the driver is headed to a deserted house with no headlights on. When they get home later that night, they find Officer Ernie in the guest house. He has come to inform Mary that they found her father's watch in a cavern and that they'll resume the search in the morning. Teary-eyed, Mary says she'll join them. Before Ernie leaves, she tells him about the car heading to the abandoned temple house. Right away, Ernie heads there and lurks behind the trees when he sees someone in the temple house. He tries calling for backup, but his colleagues seem to be unavailable. Suddenly, a snake bites Ernie in the leg, causing him to scream in shock. This catches the attention of the temple house's owner, Lady Sylvia Marsh. She offers to tend to the snake bite, and Ernie diligently goes with her. There, Sylvia sucks the venom from his leg but secretly swallows it. She then offers a glass of brandy to Ernie, to which he refuses at first, but ends up giving in. Later, Ernie explains that he was lurking in the woods because he speculated that the estate was being robbed. He also shares that Mary Trent and her archaeologist friend reported her, not knowing that it was Sylvia driving. The following day, Sylvia heads to the guest house and sees the excavation site. She smiles, then proceeds to enter the premises when she realizes that no one is home. She tries opening the rooms as if looking for something. Finally, she finds what she's looking for, the skull that Angus discovered. Without second guessing, she takes it, then spits venom on the crucifix in the hallway. Not long after she leaves, Eve arrives with James. There, she finds a letter that Mary left, informing her that she and Angus are accompanying the search party. James asks if she wants him to take her to the cavern, but Eve refuses since they won't catch up anyway. With this, James checks Angus's excavation site while Eve heads upstairs. She finds the crucifix soaked in venom, and as soon as she touches it, Eve sees a vision of Jesus on the cross with a white serpent curling around him. The vision also shows her a group of nuns being desecrated by Roman soldiers. Hearing the commotion upstairs, James rushes to Eve and asks what happened. They then head to the kitchen where Eve attempts to explain the recent events. However, she struggles to recall the vision, and the last thing she remembers is that she put her dad's watch in her pocket. As she hands the watch to James, he notices a snake symbol that wasn't there before. When Eve sees this, she screams in fear as her memories finally return. She tells James everything she saw in the vision, but then he asks if the serpent was white. The question astounds Eve, but James explains that it must be similar to the mosaic that Angus recently discovered in the yard. The two immediately head there, and true enough, there's a white serpent curling around the cross on the mosaic. Eve confirms that it's the same one in the vision, and this makes them wonder if the skull belongs to the serpent. They proceed to Angus's room but can't find the skull. Suddenly, Angus and Mary catch them red-handed, but it doesn't matter now since the skull was stolen. With someone to look after Mary, James makes his way home. Meanwhile, Sylvia passes by a Boy Scout named Kevin who's wondering if he could catch a ride to a nearby hostel. Seeing that he's soaking wet, Sylvia tells him to dry himself off at her house before he goes. That night, the two play a game of snakes and ladders. As they play, Sylvia decides to listen to some music, but Kevin is way ahead of her and starts playing his harmonica. This has a strange effect on Sylvia as it makes her dance. When Kevin stops playing, she takes the harmonica away, saying that it creeps her out. She then diverts the topic by telling him to take a warm bath, promising to give him the experience of a lifetime after it. Sylvia then teases Kevin with a kiss and bathes him. In the middle of doing so, she tells tells him to stand up so she can scrub him clean. Kevin closes his eyes, preparing himself for the thrill, only to end up paralyzed when Sylvia bites him. Afterward, Sylvia grabs the serpent's skull and prepares to offer a sacrifice to the ancient snake god, Dionin. However, she gets disturbed when someone rings the doorbell. Before leaving, Sylvia pushes Kevin into the water, drowning him. When she opens the door, she sees James inquiring about the snake problem, having heard that Ernie was bitten. He offers to have her lawn mowed so that she won't get bitten. Sylvia appreciates this, so she offers him a drink. As the two enjoy their drinks, Sylvia jokes about the Trent sisters being orphans, which bothers James. Sylvia then manipulates him into thinking that she's sympathizing with the sisters and Ernie's snakebite. She even starts crying, which leads James to comfort her with a hug. She then expresses how much she hates snakes, but James asks why she'd play snakes and ladders, which is left by the fireplace. Sylvia quickly makes something up, replying that it's a compulsion from being bitten by a snake when she was a child. She adds that she's had a peculiar fascination with snakes since then. After this, she burns the board game in the fireplace, then tells James that she's feeling tired. Before making his way out, James asks if he can see her again. Sylvia agrees, then kisses James with her reptile tongue concealed from his sight. That night, James dreams of boarding a plane with Sylvia, Eve, and Mary as the stewardess. There, Sylvia forces the Trent sisters' parents to drink a poisoned concoction. She attempts to do the same thing to James, but Eve stops her. As the two women wrestle, Mr. Trent gets up and leaves the plane. James follows him and ends up in a cavern, where he finds Mr. Trent's watch on the ground. Just then, James wakes up and realizes just how odd his dream was. While his butler, Peters, prepares him some coffee, James reads the local paper that says the search for the Trents has been called off. Comparing the caverns from the article and from the painting about his ancestor, he realizes that there's a connection. With this, James meets up with Mary and the others, and he encourages them to join him in searching the cavern, which is said to be the lair of the Dampton worm. There, Angus accompanies him in observing the ancient drawings on the walls. Angus thinks there's some sort of fertility symbol that represents a hermaphrodite, such like an earthworm. After this, they return to the sisters, who badly want to go home. James pleads with them to have one last look before they go, so Mary agrees. However, she tells Eve to return to the guest house because they need the visitors' tea ready. On her way home, Eve hears someone calling her name. To her surprise, she sees Sylvia on top of a tree, saying she got stuck there after attempting to save a cat. After Eve helps her down, Sylvia hypnotizes and lures her into the temple house. There, she commands Eve to remove her clothes. While Eve obeys, Sylvia reveals that she's immortal and that she has witnessed people being reincarnated throughout the years. She even saw Eve as a nun many centuries ago, in the time of her lover, Emperor Carausius. Infuriated that she, along with some other Christians, attempted to build a convent over her temple, Sylvia plans to offer Eve as a sacrifice to Dionin. Concerned that the others might look for her, Sylvia tells Eve to call Mary and tell her that she'll head to London to take a break from everything. Right away, Eve does as she's told, but as she sees the crucifix on her ring, she screams Dionin. Before Mary can understand what's going on in the other line, Sylvia spits venom on Eve. As she loses consciousness, Eve sees a vision of her past self as a nun, dying with a spear through her stomach. Sylvia then takes the ring and ends the call. Meanwhile, Mary worries about her sister as it's not like her to act so spontaneously. She also mentions that Eve spoke with Dionin, whom Angus recognizes as a pagan snake god. James adds that Eve muttered the same name when she collapsed upstairs. Mary calls one of her friends from the station, but there are no sightings of Eve anywhere. When she checks Eve's things, Mary finds that she didn't take any clothes with her, which could only mean that she's been abducted. James hesitates to voice out his opinion, but Angus encourages him to. With this, he explains that Eve's disappearance is linked to Dionin, as it couldn't be a mere coincidence that it happened after the skull was unearthed. He also confirms that the skull is relevant since it got stolen before it was even identified. He then links the clues together and realizes that Sylvia must be involved because she owns the temple house and has a weird fascination with snakes. Later that night, James tries to prove his suspicions regarding Sylvia. He tells Peters to place their biggest speakers on top of his estate, which he'll use to play a snake's charmer song. True enough, the song entices Sylvia to dance like a snake. As she gets lured to the source of the music, Angus and Mary trespass into the temple house. When they get inside, Angus notices the statue of Marcus Carausius, which strengthens their speculation about Sylvia. They then proceed to explore the house and end up in a room where they find Mrs. Trent. Mary sheds tears of joy upon seeing her mother, but this gets wiped off her face when her mother turns into a snake hybrid and bites her neck. Angus immediately scares Mrs. Trent with a piece of wood from the fireplace, causing her to run into the dark. Meanwhile, Mary sees a vision of Sylvia in her snake hybrid form, multiplying in front of her beneath the flames. To save her, Angus sucks out the venom from Mary's neck. He then calls James James, but Peters picks up the call instead. James then tells Peters to unlock the front door so he can lure Sylvia in. However, he hears some scream downstairs as the electricity gets cut off. Suddenly, Mrs. Trent lunges at James, but he acts swiftly and slays her with a sword. He then observes her wriggling body, which is cut in half. After confirming that Peters is dead, James calls Angus, who tells him that Mary has been bitten by her own mother. He adds that if one's nervous system gets attacked, the victim seems to be afflicted by some sort of vampirism. Angus then tells James that if they're going to beat Sylvia, then he's going to need time for a bit of research. Meanwhile, James will put some of his theories into practice, but first he needs to kill Mrs. Trent as she's still alive while holding on to his leg. Later, Angus tells Mary about her mother's passing. She cries in sorrow, so Angus embraces her to offer comfort. The next day, Ernie stops by the guest house and asks Mary to come with him to identify her mother's body. She hesitates since she's waiting for Angus, but ends up going with him anyway. On their way, Mary notices that they're not headed to the station. Ernie explains that they're stopping by the manor to pick up Sylvia, as there are accusations of her being involved in the case. When they reach the temple house, Ernie asks Mary if she wants to accompany him inside. However, when she sees the patch on his wrist, which resembles a snake bite, she runs for her life. She heads directly to the gates, but it shuts itself closed. Ernie pursues her, ending in a wild chase into the canals. There, Mary finds herself cornered with Ernie tailing behind her with his blood-red eyes and snake fangs. However, before he can attack, Angus appears with a bagpipe, which attracts Ernie. He chases Angus around the temple house until the younger man gets tired of blowing on the bagpipes. Because of this, Angus wrestles Ernie, and he ends up pushing him toward a sharp snake monument. This pierces through Ernie's eye socket, ultimately killing him. After this, Angus roams the temple house while playing the bagpipes. He senses something lurking in the dark room by the stairs, so he injects himself with an anti-venom serum before proceeding. He then releases a mongoose, which is the snake's natural enemy. True enough, it runs into the room, which hints that Sylvia might be in there. When Angus walks towards it, Sylvia suddenly leaps out and attacks him. After biting him in the leg, she pulls out her earplugs, which explains why the bagpipes music didn't hypnotize her. With Angus immobile, Sylvia pulls him to a secret cavern where she already has Mary and Eve as captives. Right away, she starts her ritual and prepares to sacrifice Eve to Dionin. Meanwhile, James gathers men to release toxic gas in the cavern in the mountains, which is connected to the one at the temple house. This triggers the serpent to appear before the ritual, thus forcing Sylvia to proceed with the sacrifice immediately. She positions Eve to dangle over the hole where the snake is, but before Sylvia can cut the rope that binds her, Angus pushes the snake woman. She manages to hold onto Eve's leg, but Angus slices her hand off, making her the serpent's meal. Angus catches Eve before the rope breaks. He then hands her to Mary and proceeds to kill the serpent by throwing a grenade into its mouth. As soon as they get outside, Angus injects Eve with an antidote to counter Sylvia's venom. Later, he meets up with James at the guest house, and they update each other on the recent events. Suddenly, the phone rings inside, and Angus gets up to answer it. It's a call from the lab, informing him that he was given the wrong serum. It turns out that he injected himself with arthritis medicine instead of the anti-venom one. As the truth sinks into Angus's mind, James honks his car from outside. He then joins him in the car, where he accidentally reveals his snake bite before James's eyes.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.